Hi, my name is Laura, and I live in Kyle, Texas. I used to live in Austin, Texas. I lived out in Southeast Austin, never had any issues until, of course, the 2013 when that flood happened. I just had my baby. Everything seemed fine. I wasn't expecting anything to happen. We've had floods before, and it kind of sometimes would always come up to the grass, but never into our house. And it always hit the other houses next to me. Um, I know my dad had left early to go to work, and it was dark. And I was up, of course, with being a young mom, and they just wake you up early. But he was saying that the water was slightly rising, and he told me that he wished he would have done something sooner to evacuate us. And it was still, like I said, really dark outside, and I just noticed two guys had came to our house knocking on our door, and I was like, they wanted to come in. I was hesitant, and my mom said, "Let them in." I was like, "Mom, I have a little baby. I don't want no random strangers to come inside the house." And they were just saying that the water was coming, and I told my mom, "No, we're gonna be fine because this has happened before, and it's missed our house." And I felt like our house was kind of in an incline, a slight incline. So, but she said, just let them in. And before I knew it, just the water just started rising more and more inside the house. It went so fast. It's like turning on a sink, and it's just like if it was stopped up, it was just rising so fast. And I grabbed my daughter's car seat and put her in there. And before I knew it, I couldn't even find one of our dogs because it was so muddy, and it was just, like I said, happening so fast. I was kind of worried because the water had splashed on her, and I didn't know what exactly was in the water. It's who knows. And then my mom, they told us, "Hey, we got to get up on the roof." I was kind of hesitant because I had a C-section, so I'm still kind of healing. And luckily, one of our family members had built a dog kennel, and they found a ladder. And so what they did is the dog kennel was pretty high. So, and then putting that ladder on, I just remember climbing on that ladder. And about 1999, my dad had built a porch, and I was like, how is this going to hold us up? Again, I'm still like, what is happening? This is just everything's happening too fast. And I just remember the two guys. I wish I knew their names. I don't, I don't know what would happen if they didn't come. And I'm sorry. I just didn't think this I would have these emotions again. And I'm like, it's just me, my mom, and my baby. And luckily they just helped us get on the roof, and it was still pretty dark, and I could see a little bit from the moonlight that the water was continuing to climb up. I just remember it being cold and raining, and again, I don't know. I know later on we were told that the water went up 6 feet, which is pretty high, but I still everything's moving out pretty fast from the house. And I just, again, we got up on the roof, and we're just waiting there. My mom, me, and those two guys that helped us. And what was also sad is our neighbors had a two-story house, and there was a family that was living there that went through the whole Katrina thing. And I don't know, it was just a lot going on that day. And I remember calling some of my family members. I even called one of my managers. She was pretty religious. And I said, "Can you just please pray for us?" Because even though this was happening so fast, again, I know a house is supposed to hold up, but how much can a house hold up with water just continuously flowing through the house? And are we going to collapse? I just remember the star flight was coming, and I was like, God, just, if anything, just take my baby. But they couldn't see us, or maybe they did. They just had to rescue the most important, like people that were in immediate danger. And I just, the sun started to, come out, and I could see the water still pretty high. And then slowly it started to go down. My dad was telling me he was crying when he had heard what had happened, because he was trying to go in and, like, save us, but they wouldn't let him go. And he's like, that's my wife, my daughter, and my granddaughter. Like, that's all I have, like my brother at the time was living in North Carolina. Well, he's still living in North Carolina. So, I mean, it's just, it was us. And I remember later too hearing that a woman and her baby had died. And I think the baby was roughly close to my daughter's, like, I guess, month, like her age. So I was really sad, because that could have been us too. So I'm very thankful for the two guys. I don't even know who their names are, but I just want to thank them for help saving us, because I don't think I would have been able to get on the roof. I wouldn't have thought about that. Maybe get on the bed, but even then, I don't, that the water being higher than that. Later, as soon as the water went down, we looked and we saw the damage that had done, and we had got so much stuff. Everything that I got from the baby shower was gone, like money that had saved to put in her bank account, and just a lot of stuff was damaged. And I remember my mom, before we left, she had went to a filing cabinet and she put it over some important papers over the fridge. And we were hoping that the insurance would cover a lot of stuff, but we didn't know that it did not cover contents. It only covered the house. So it was really hard losing everything and then having to start over. My mom's an immigrant from Mexico, and then my dad, living in Austin. And I guess this is what they could afford at the time. He just felt like, wow, we made it big by getting a house. But, still knowing that it wasn't a flood zone, but not being aware like this could happen. I just remember my aunts and my uncles coming to help us clean. God, just a lot of stuff destroyed. But then if you think about it, like I was so mad because, like, pictures and, I had just got this new, like, crib, and was a Tempur-Pedic. It just a lot of stuff that I had already, like, I was already working after college and making some money, and, like, why does this have to happen? But then in hindsight, like, we're here, we're still alive. Like, that's replaceable, but we're not. I think it was 2 or 3 years later, the flood happened again. I was at work this time, and my mom was home with with my daughter. I think that was enough. That just broke the camel's back, and we were just done. But luckily, the city was able to buy us out, and we made sure, my mom and I, we both got houses, but made sure it was not in a flood zone. I remember telling my dad, let's just let's just start over somewhere. And he's like, Laura, we can't. Like, literally, Austin's so expensive. And I just remember when the reporters came out saying, like, what, we have engineers, like the, UT and Texas State, the closest, universities, like, why can't they just build a levee or something? And I know that's just ridiculous, because I'm sure that was going to cost a lot of money, but, because we still wanted to stay there, but starting over would have been like possible, because the cost of everything. So, but we were lucky to, when they bought us out, my mom was able to get a home. I was able to get a home. So we're in a good place now. I mean, I miss Austin. I miss the old Austin. But it is what it is. And I'm just glad we're still here. I thought my mom was totally over this, but when I talked to her recently, she said that she wasn't. Some of the stuff kind of blanked out for me. I think, like, trauma, and she does not like Halloween. I still love it, but she's still traumatized. I'm still traumatized when it comes to raining, and it's continuous to rain. I know that being Latinos, we don't really go seek help. We were supposed to deal with it, because, and so I had to reach out. I contacted, it's Cynthia de la Fuentes. She's a psychologist. I had to see somebody because this just was too traumatic. I was already dealing with postpartum depression on top of this, you know? So, um, but yeah, that's kind of what I dealt with. I haven't had these emotions until right now. And I, like I said, if anybody or if someone in your own culture, like I just had to seek someone in my culture that could understand like what sometimes, because it's kind of, even though it could be anybody, I just felt like maybe they would understand a little bit more. And literally, she helped me so much, a lot. And I'm very thankful for her help. If people are still traumatized from it, please seek help. Like, I mean, any help would, or at least talk about it. Sometimes you just need to get it off your chest. But yeah, um, and then again, if there's just, this the water starting to rise, and if you're able to evacuate, then do it. If not, just always have a game plan on, like, even now, like I try to think of a game plan, like if something happens, always kind of have like a safety plan. That's all I ask. It was hard just leaving all those memories behind, but you know, uh it was, like I said, it was probably best because I couldn't imagine losing anybody, like especially like I mentioned with that lady and her baby dying. I and then it happened, the flood happening again. I mean, who I don't want to lose my family, but I think we're good here, you know.